I've been doing some reading this morning because I know a lot of comments I get, a lot of the anger and frustration from people in Australia is directed towards the Australian government and their complete spinelessness on this issue, particularly given our Prime Minister in the past has been very vocal about his support for Palestine. So his silence now is very hard to comprehend and accept. And I think we've all come to the conclusion, we all assume it's to do with money, right? It's always to do with money, but whose money? And I think Australians have a right to know whose money is making these decisions for our country, who is so powerful and so wealthy that they can influence political decisions. So I followed the money. I investigated a few of the pro-Israel lobby groups in Australia and I found a name linked to all of them, and that name is Frank Lowy. Frank Lowy, the man who brought us Westfield, one of Australia's richest men, currently worth $9 billion. Now, before he became Sir Frank Lowy, fucking billionaire, he was born in Czechoslovakia, now Slovakia, in 1930. He hid during the Holocaust in Hungary. After World War II, he fled in 1946 to Palestine. In 1948, he joined the Golani Brigade, a paramilitia of Israelis, and fought in the 1948 War of Independence, or better known as the Nakba. This man fought in the Nakba, part of the military that forced the expulsion of 750,000 Palestinians from their homeland. In 1952, he moved to Australia, where he got the Order of Australia, a knighthood. He is Sir now, and earned a fuckload of money. Now, he is not just an incredibly wealthy man, he's also everywhere. For a long time, he was on the board of directors for the Reserve Bank of Australia. He also founded and funded the Lowy Institute, named after himself, an incredibly prominent independent think tank, which wields a huge amount of influence and power over government policy because they provide the research for that policy. But he is also listed as a supporter and benefactor of, among others, the AIJAC, which is the Australia-Israel Jewish Advisory Council. They fund all of the Rambam tours. Also the Zionist Federation of Australia. And he is a life governor of the United Israel Appeal, which is a global organisation that pours money into Israel. And then there are the political donations, of which there are many, to both sides. But the most recent one was in 2022. He donated 3 different donations totalling $550,000 to the Liberal Party. But he didn't donate it from himself personally. He funneled those funds through a company that has no address, no website, no employees, but is part of the Lowy Holdings Group. So he tried to be a little bit dodgy about it so that he wouldn't be named. Jeffrey Watson, SC, Director of the Centre for Public Integrity and former New South Wales Court of Appeal judge, said that it is a huge amount of money, far too much for one donor. It's the type of money that could influence politicians and political parties. It's very important the legislation provides to prevent against a related entity giving money under different names, because it's dodgy as What's even more dodgy is that Frank Lowy became an Israeli citizen in 2018. He moved to Tel Aviv full-time at age 90. So why is a man who is now an Israeli citizen, living in Israel, why is he making $500,000 donations to Australian political parties? He doesn't even live here anymore. Why would he be throwing that much money at Australian politics? Another interesting little piece of information. In the early 2000s, he was investigated for tax evasion by the US Senate, who claimed that he had hidden 68 million Australian dollars from the Australian tax office. I'm not quite sure the link between the US Senate looking into this, but he claimed that it was a witch hunt, that he never hid all of that money from Australia. He donated it to Israel. So he successfully evaded paying us, Australia, $68 million in tax by just giving it to Israel. He was embroiled in a corruption investigation in Israel with the former PM, Ehud Olmert, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, regarding hush money to advance the privatisation of an Israel bank. He's also one of the prime heavyweight donors to Keren Hayesod, which is a global organisation raising funds for Israel. So I'm not saying that he pays the government to do what he wants, but I am saying he pays the government and the government does what he wants. Is it a coincidence?